Hi, welcome to our second segment of the Ask Lisa series. We're actually out here outside the United States Senate this afternoon. It's a pretty hot day. It's probably about, I don't know, 90, 95 degrees. So we're going to answer a couple questions here. The first one is actually from someone who attended the Make It Monday forum in Anchorage last week when all members of the delegation were gathered to talk about issues that faced Alaska. And one of the questions coming from that forum, and one that I'd like to take today, is the following. The individual asks, how do you justify your position on expanding BP's liability for the Gulf spill to those people who were never properly compensated by Exxon in the state of Alaska? Well, this whole issue of liability is one that has really consumed us here in the Senate over these past several weeks as we have been watching the disaster unfold down in the Gulf of Mexico. As we know, as of this point in time, the spill has not yet been contained. We have not yet capped it. I had an opportunity on Monday to go to the Gulf, to fly over the spill. I was traveling with the Secretary of the Interior, Secretary Salazar, as well as Secretary Napolitano from Homeland Security, and several other Senate members. I will tell you, it was quite powerful to see the extent, to see the scope of this spill, and to recognize that as we flew over, this was not the worst of the damage because it still continues to spew from the seabed floor. So when we talk about liability, I think it's incredibly important that everyone in the administration, all of us in Congress, and BP itself has said BP, as the responsible party, will ensure that claims are paid. All legitimate claims are paid. Now people have said, well, what does legitimate mean? And it's really been defined as those claims that are not fraudulent. But I think it's important, and we here in the Senate have taken steps to in fact codify the responsibility that BP has accepted, that they are going to be paying all of these claims. Now, we held a hearing in the Senate Energy Committee just yesterday on the issue of the liability cap. That cap is currently at $75 million, but it needs to be kept in perspective that this is as to economic damages. It does not relate to the other aspect of damages, those damages which are unlimited when it comes to spill cleanup. So I think it's important that we remember that in fact BP will be responsible for all cleanup costs. BP will reimburse, and we have just now introduced legislation that sets forth an expedited claims processing procedure so that the people who have been impacted down in the Gulf are not left on the hook like far too many of Alaska's fishermen were when the Exxon Valdez ran aground. We learned a lot from Exxon Valdez. We don't want to be repeating any of those same mistakes down in the Gulf. So the issue of liability is one that is ongoing. We've got the liability issue for this particular spill, but we here in the Congress and with the administration need to be looking to policies longer term and how we ensure that those who cause the damage are responsible for the containment and all of the cleanup and all of the compensation. Second question I'd like to get to here is this is from a young man in 8th grade at Randy Smith Middle School in Fairbanks. The boy's name is Harry, and Harry is doing an independent project on the health care bill. And he asks this question. He says, how do you think health care reform will affect my generation and future generations? Well, Harry, as an 8th grader, hopefully you've got a long life in front of you. But I will tell you, with this health care bill, there's a lot of firsts. This is the first time that an individual in this country will be required to have health care coverage. And if you fail to have health care coverage, there is a consequence. It is the first time that as an employer you will be required to provide coverage for your employees if you employ more than 50 individuals in your firm or in your business. This will be the first time that health care benefits will actually be taxed. That is not something that has been done in the past, and this will be an added imposition, an added cost. So there are a lot of firsts with this health care bill that will be with you and your family and subsequent generations as long as these laws are in place. I think it is important to recognize that you, as a young person, as a young teenager, will be paying for the health care reform bill that we have just enacted for many, many years into your future. When we think about the costs of health care reform, it's not necessarily me and my generation that will be bearing the financial burden, but it will be the young people like you. With that, I think we've probably come to the close of this particular segment of Ask Lisa. Again, I remind you, if you'd like to submit a question to us by email, by Twitter, go on Facebook, we'd welcome you to do that, and we'll check in with you next week. Thanks.